Yeah, I would preface this kind of presentation first by saying this is the first presentation I've made in a year. And I was reminded by Facebook the other day that my last presentation was about a year ago in Malmö in Sweden. I did it, I sat down, and then I was rushed to hospital having a heart attack. And I was being discharged a year ago yesterday. So if I have a heart attack this time, we're blaming ego. Yes. But I feel all right now, but if I do pass out, it's ego fault. So yeah, I'm giving this presentation today.
I should have some insurance coverage.
Yes.
Liability.
I feel fine. Like I say, blame people. I'm a lawyer, we always find someone else to blame. But yeah, so I'm kind of giving this, combining three presentations what I've delivered before, or a lecture that I've delivered before, with one overall theme, essentially it's autonomous ships, which weirdly is not my area of law. It's more to do with maritime safety. So there's that angle to the presentation as well. So I kind of put this on here, who am I? Obviously the A and the I in red to sound like AI. There are 5 great Laverick in the world, 45 of them, all English. The one in the corner that we made play rugby. I couldn't find a picture of the guy who used to play rugby years ago, but that apparently is ChatGPT's version of me. And in anticipation of Ego asking us for our bio, I asked ChatGPT, who am I? Now there's all the rest of them, so ignoring the nuclear, there was an engineer out there who ChatGPT thought was me. There was a whole bio about this quick an engineer. No, not an engineer, I'm a lawyer, I said. And it came up with the 3, obviously I'm the one at the bottom. I was second off last as the one who AI identified as being me. The one in the top corner there, was the lawyer who works for a leading commercial firm. The guy in the middle is a Craig Laverick, who is a legal researcher, and obviously me. So 4 of us, 3 of us kept the law, 1 player and 1 engineer, and it got to me second off last. So the reason why I kind of mention that is because later on I'm talking about kind of how reliable AI is and what we expect, or what the industry is expecting AI to do for maritime ships. So bear that in mind. I'm not a rugby player, even though I'm quite athletic. I am the one at the bottom. So another ChatGPT version of me, for some reason it looked like I'm miserable. That was taken of me today with this shirt on, and I asked it to do an academic version of me, and that's what I came up with. So why me? And why am I doing this job, even though it's not in my area of law? And that was because now the British government think I'm psychic. A few years ago, I delivered a lecture, a public lecture on the Iranian tanker crisis and kind of what it meant for Britain and our interests, etc., etc. And then I went back to what I didn't realize at the time, but was a job interview. And I was in a little room, it felt like a round robin, although they were all picking on me. And that's when I realised it was a job interview. And there was an admiral in there in plain clothes, there was a few government people, and they were asking me about this lecture. And I said, well, it is obvious it's what's going to happen. So I predicted what is currently going on in the Red Sea at the moment. I was wrong by 12 days. I said by the end of the year, this will happen. And I laid it out exactly. I thought, great, I'm an academic, I can kind of talk to my students, I can talk to people about what I think will happen. And yeah, like what they said, it's all right, you academics, sitting in your ivory towers, coming up with all these transport theories, but how likely are they? And that's what I was accused of being. And then on 12 days after my, when I said it, so it was the 12th of January, my math works out right. I was, like I say, I'm an athletic, I was shooting, I'm an archer, I was playing archery, and I got a phone call. There'd been an attack in the Red Sea, and everything I said came true. So I got summoned down to London, and therefore I was off the job to take on the role of Special Envoy, which is now all of London thinks I'm psychic. I'm not, but if you want to read your palms, with a lot of numbers, I do charge €10 at a time. So, according to kind of these fanciful ideas, I've used this slide a few times. There are 7, I think, 7 projects, shall we say, on there. To try to get people involved, just waste time, I suppose. By racial hand, everyone to guess how many of those on there are real projects. Now, some of them are not. I've used kind of concept art, I suppose, on purpose, so that to hide the fact that some of them are real and some of them aren't. Anyone has a guess out of 7, how many they are? So we've got these flying helicopter things, look like drones. We've got these boat taxis that are autonomous. We've got these military vessels that are autonomous. We've got we all know the Arbor and Fields, that's a kind of the one I'll give you for free. Some taxis at the bottom of both Eagle's Head. We've got my car at the corner there that can autonomously stop itself and start, etc. And we've got a rocket in the middle there on a barge. How many of those do you think are real? How many do you think are kind of concepts which may be real in the future but are not quite in operation yet? Yeah, any advances for? There's no prizes, don't worry. All of them are actually in operation. So I'm going to show you one of them, which somebody invited me to go on, and I think earlier on somebody said about getting in an autonomous aeroplane. We've got the ones that are real, and I said there was no chance that I'm getting on board one of these. I'll show you a picture in a minute. But that one top there is a air Uber, or something like an air Uber. We have just below we have the taxi. They were running in the Paris Olympics on the river. We have something similar in operation in Finland anyway. The military vessel at the side of that one is in operation. Unfortunately, it is something we feared. It's why I had armed police taken to work for a few days, because what I'm working with at the moment, although it's not top secret or anything like that, it is commercially sensitive and has the potential of being weaponized. And it was stolen, we know this, by Russia. And Russia and China have now developed these autonomous, very small, I guess, like autonomous ships that are capable of delivering weapons. Our fear is the next step is nuclear. But we have these military ships anyway. We have Birkin, which is what I've been working with the designers, etc. of. Below that is actually the barge more than the actual rocket that is autonomous, and that is obviously SpaceX guy. We'll look at him in a second. And these taxis as well, these are in operation, I think, in Asia, and they were meant to bring them out for the Paris Olympics as well, but I don't know if they were in actual operation at the time. My car, not that I'm always ill, but I'm diabetic and I have no awareness of my heart whatsoever. So if you do hear me beep, that's about me going into a coma. And they brought out this technology where we wear a device on our arm, communicates to the car. So if I'm about going to a coma and I'm driving, it will apply the emergency brake. So they've been around for a while, £2,000 to fit your car, or you get your license taken off you. So all that technology is in operation as we speak. At different stages. Trick question away, but what are you smarter than AI? What is that? No, that's a burglar. So I couldn't get the image from my security camera, which uses AI, but I've got a camera outside my house, and the amount of time I've had the alarm go off my house, the burglar alarm, because pigeons don't walk, pigeons fly. The reason why I mentioned this as well later on, I'll talk to you about Uber itself and how they made a huge potential mistake and how the maritime industry learned from it. But pigeons don't walk, they fly. So when my computer camera saw a pigeon at night walking across the garden, it assumed it was a burglar and the alarm went off. And that's kind of the stance what all the technology behind AI has been up until relatively recently. If it doesn't know something, it won't learn.
Isn't he weird smarter than AI?
Well, no. These are the air Ubers I was talking about. That's a kind of not a real person, it's a dummy. And Boeing had developed these, and another company, I forget the name of. Is anybody in the room from Australia or Holland? No. They're the two companies that are pioneering with these. They want them to be like air Ubers. So you come out of a nightclub late at night, early hours in the morning for me, and you look at your phone and think, I better not drive home, I better not get a taxi, I will call an air Uber. You press the button on your phone and the Uber lands in front of you. They want these to roll out in England eventually. Now, any of you who are English or have ever been to England, especially the north of England, will know that this is a potential nightmare. And bear in mind, I was 15 when I first started drinking, and I woke up in a skip. And I do not think I could be trusted in an air Uber at that age, or any age really, when I'm drunk and expect things to go okay. But that's how they're expecting them to roll out. I designed for people who are coming out of nightclubs and they want to get home safely. I don't think they'll work in England, but in Australia and in Holland, they're pioneering these, and they're expecting these to be launched in the next few years and kind of be on kind of everyone's radar, so to speak. But they have tested them. The other company, you might see them on if you look on Google Images, they're yellow. But it's one of these I was offered to kind of go in. Can't have a chance of me going in one of those. So now we're moving on to these kind of the other creative projects, not the air Ubers, but the ones that are more associated with maritime. And there are three main ones. There are other smaller projects, I suppose. I've been working in the background with a few of them that to do with the brilliant companies that form Scandinavia. There's a huge Scandinavian section of me. I used to live in Norway many years ago, and that comes to relevant, I suppose, in a few slides' time. Now, a few people mentioned Yara Birken. It's a huge one. Now, if you're not aware of Yara Birken or Yara, it's a company. The reason why I've been kind of saying the Norway file kind of perspective is because I've been telling the UK government or the British government that we need to be more like, when we find companies more like Yara, their philosophy is let's feed the world. So they're a company, all their profit goes into helping other countries, other people around the world, feeding them. They're a fertilizer company essentially. They spend with their own profit billions on developing this project. No other company has done this ever, because it's eaten into their profits many years without a definite kind of an outcome, I suppose, every year. And the pandemic kind of threw things around the middle, I suppose. But they've got this working ship, and I've been on board. It's absolutely beautiful. It is huge. I'll show you a little video shortly. But I don't think in Britain we'll ever find a company like this. They are unique, shall we say. But Yara have developed everything. They've had Rolls-Royce, the engines. They've had a few companies behind them, but Yara have financed it all because they want to, and I'll show you a little video shortly of this why they're doing it, or because they want to save fuel, they want to kind of help the environment, and the overall, like I say, feed the world. Finn Ferries is a good company, but they are unique in that their ferries only operate in internal waters. They've got no problems with international law at all. But Finn Ferries has been around for a few years, and they've got these, they're decent size, they're not kind of what you expect the first autonomous ships to be, where the size of a rubber dinghy. They are actually a decent sized ferry, but they've got crew on board to kind of step in just in case they need to. And then I put a gap, I put SpaceX there because that's totally different, and we'll look at that in a slide or two's time. So, let's say this is SpaceX guy here. You all know who he is, don't you? Yeah? Yeah? It's fine, we didn't. So, a couple of years ago, he had his barge, and he took us from one side of America to the other through the canal, etc. And at the time, no international law was there, kind of governing, I suppose. He wasn't bothered, but he did have a fleet of kind of boats and ships following it just in case. But he's pushing forward. He's not bothered about the law, obviously, we know that. But there's now kind of a new danger presented by Elon Musk, although it's being curtailed at the moment, because they're Lover's Tiff. But there's a potential danger with autonomous ships and Elon Musk. And I had that permission, and I only got permission a couple of days ago, so my slide changed a bit, because at the time I had to attend a briefing down at Whitehall, which is where our government has offices and what have you, regarding a potential threat with Donald Trump and Elon Musk. And it seems one of the biggest threats the world would face in terms of maritime. So I was thrilled to be there. And again, I'll look at that in a few slides' time, a bit of discussion about that. It's something I think should be on people's radar. And now that certain things being declassified and the media report about it, mainly The Guardian, we can talk about it, but it's not being talked about properly because I don't realise the actual potential. Because the other things going on in America, it's kind of being pushed aside a bit, I suppose. But this is what we're talking about here, this kind of barge. You didn't really see much of it. So, a bit of a landing platform for this missile or toy rocket. But that is autonomous. And was fully autonomous, wasn't being controlled on shore. We've had different discussions about what we mean by autonomous, if it's somebody on shore controlling it, if it's somebody who can step in. That was all autonomous, fully autonomous. Nobody intervened at all and didn't need to and couldn't. These are the ships that he owns at the moment, or did up until about 6 months ago. I haven't updated that recently. And he's converting them all to be autonomous, disregarding the law or the lack of, because he can now have Donald Trump in the White House. And he wants them all converted into autonomous ships, floating wherever in the world, without there really being any law that governs them. So, back to a decent company, Finn Ferries. The facts there. So the Rolls-Royce have done the ship there, the engines as well as the intelligence side of things. main voyage was a couple of years ago now, so been around a fair bit. But they're just going backwards and forwards across the fjord. It's not far at all, and access internal waters. They didn't change the law in Finland though, because there was a law around which kind of banned or prevented any autonomous vessels. But the nature of Finland and the companies and kind of working close with the government, which our government isn't like at all, they bend the rules and change the law practically overnight to allow for the testing of these autonomous ships. Because there's a close relationship between Scandinavian countries and their government, not like Britain and some other countries. Interestingly, practically the 11th hour, they changed their software for this autonomous side of things because they learned from something that happened not long before. Does anybody know what I'm referring to with this slide? Yeah, this is Uber. So the whole kind of concept of Uber and Google and all the cars that are doing their autonomous side of things is get as many hours on the books as possible to show that we are trustworthy. We've done millions of hours and therefore no accidents and therefore we can be trusted by one of our cars. This lady was sat behind on the phone, texting, half asleep, whatever. And a bit like the pigeon scenario, so I put pigeon on, Uber, so autonomous software, whatever, did not recognise what was on the camera, shall we say. What is that?
Like walking with bicycle.
And why is it confusing?
Not riding the bicycle.
Yeah. So a couple of things, yeah. So the kind of programmed into the software was a person rides a bike on a bike. They do not cross the road, but you don't see there with that camera is that it is the camera, sorry, the lights are on green for the car and on red for the pedestrian. But pedestrians don't have bikes. So I didn't know what it was because pedestrians don't have bikes, cyclists are on top of bikes, and nobody dares cross in front of a car when the car's lights on green and the pedestrians is on red. So if you don't understand what is in front of you, you just continue, and therefore plough the lady, and the lady was killed instantly. And we don't know the outcome, unfortunately, of what fully went on because there was that court settlement, and because of the unusual scenario, there was no prison, etc. Because who do you blame? Do you blame the software? Do you blame the person who technically was in charge but wasn't really looking? So we don't get a full answer as to who do we point to blame to what went on in America. But what we do learn from is, hold on, let's have a look at our own systems. If we don't understand something, what do we do? So Finnish ferries overnight changed their software to basically stop and ask for instructions. And therefore, going back to that, on their maiden voyage it worked because you had royalty, you had important dignitaries and all sorts on this ferry, and it didn't recognise what was in front of it. It didn't know if it was a log or a moose. And it stopped and asked for instructions. And therefore, a moose was saved, thankfully. So you imagine that nightmare, the moose was ploughed and killed, the ferry didn't know what it was. So we start learning, from this point, we start learning what we need to tinker with in our software to make sure that if something isn't understood, what we do. That becomes important in the strategy of time, don't worry. I pointed the method in my madness, and I'm going to try and play this. None of you are afraid of birds, are you? I just assumed you were afraid of birds and she's screaming around the room and I had to play a song over it. So I don't think you might, you haven't got the mic in, that's fine. This ship does exist, it's not just concept art, although that was. Interestingly and kind of uniquely, Yara so big, and everybody in Norway has a boat and kind of a port everywhere. Yara owns their own port. So logistically, we couldn't do this in England because there are not many companies, if any, that own their own port. So they couldn't kind of have all this, this infrastructure. But you have a ship that is autonomously guided in, so nobody's involved now whatsoever. The ship automatically kind of guided in, a bit like a tractor beam if you watch Star Wars or Star Trek, kind of pulls it in. You couldn't have that unless you own the port. It's not kind of busy or anything like that. And you have kind of plenty of space, I suppose, to do this. But this is kind of a clear example of how things will work. You've got Kongsberg, who are a huge company that have kind of a lot of government support, and you have Yara, like I say, I've mentioned them before, working together. At the moment in England, we don't have that. Everything's kind of competitive and kind of do what you want and kind of we'll come along later on in government and see what we can do. And I've argued that we need to be more like Norway and that we need to support our companies and kind of develop things together, because if the law's not there, we need to be asking the industry, what do you need from us in order to make things work? Sorry, there's another video about Yara, but this is one I've been on this showing you that is actually real. This is a maiden voyage. There were people on board at the time. The last time I checked, but I think it might change now, the wheelhouse that can see at the front there, that has been removed. For a while I kept it on just in case. This is leaving, I forgot the name of the place, into H, Holstad, I think. And it goes to Oslo, go down the fjord, like where that photograph hit from, I still live near there. But this was a huge thing in Norway, television crews. What they actually did was they made sure there weren't many ships in the area of the fjord when it was sailing, just to make sure that nothing did go wrong. Obviously, at the time, it's not leaving any territorial waters. It does go to Swedish waters and vice versa. There's a multilateral agreement between the two countries. There's Norway's famous opera house as it comes in and docks on its own. The common until the future. Welcome to the future if you're not Norwegian or don't speak it. So that's where we're at now. That was a couple of years ago, and now the ship's going back and forwards on its own, with nobody on board and no wheelhouse. There is really, I also kind of ironic that everything in Norway looks like an IKEA showroom, and the office over in Holstad, and there's one in Oslo as well, where they can take control if they need to. If the computer stops and says, I don't know what that is, what do I need to do? There's somebody who can take control, and it looks like an IKEA office. It doesn't look like what you saw before with the advanced screens around what somebody showed on the slide previously. It is a computer in an IKEA showroom, that's all it looks like. But that's kind of using emergencies. That's the route that it takes at the moment. And in the next few years, they've got a different company is planning on rolling out, similar to what Raphael had on his screen, the cargo ships, more cargo ships as well as more ferries. But again, this is territorial waters. Is that Midwest? That's where I used to live. There, on that screen there is where I used to live, right bang in the middle of Moss. Which is why I've been getting involved slightly more than I probably should have done. This is what I've been doing with my time as a special envoy and kind of the deals that I've been kind of trying to negotiate with Scandinavia. And let me kind of read those couple of points there rather than me read it all verbatim. I just have to change this slide because that was meant to be end of 2024, but there's been problems that update the slide end of 2025. I think I'm living in hope with that, but we shall see. This project is meant to save the UK economy or UK taxpayer €2.5 billion, supposedly. So when I'm racking up my expenses, I don't feel too guilty. But €2.5 billion is what's meant to save us if we can get on track. And the reason why it's meant to save us €2.5 billion is because we got the ball. We could have been doing this 3 years ago, developing these kind of software, etc., in the ships, but we dropped the ball and we're a bit behind, and we want to be back in the front again. So we have to pay for a license in order to kind of use this software. And the key players seem to be on board with it, to kind of use the maritime phrase, I suppose, if we're careful. So the motivation, why we're putting it off, because once we kind of sign up with the deal, shall we say, the clock starts ticking when it's paying and how long we've got it for. That is obviously with Britain, but also we're an island, we're definitely an island, and we've only really got one true neighbour apart from Norway. And for us to test our kind of ships, we need friends. And unfortunately, we've got no friends nearby apart from Norway, but it's international water in between. So if we want to kind of practice if we want to test these autonomous ships, what we've got in development, we need to have friends, our closest ally, France, which we've got a cat chance of making any friends with France whatsoever, which is my kind of dilemma to deal with government. Not helped by this idiot, who had more threats with him with France than anything else. So our next steps kind of help talk with Rotterdam. Rotterdam being part of Holland and Holland the size of a postage stamp, is now developing a smart port. And most people will be aware of this, but they want half of their port to be smart in the next few years. They want rolling it out now. And in the next 5-10 years, all to be smart port. So Rotterdam, the influence around the world, the hub to Europe, they said you get on board or you can't come in. So they've got that much influence. They're going to have more impact on the maritime world than any other European country anyway. And that's a problem for us because we still haven't got there yet. We're in practice testing these autonomous ships that we want to build. So when I was appointed as Special Envoy, I got to meet the King, the Buckingham Palace person, and the first thing I did was like the King. Not nervous, he asked me, will these ships be net zero? I didn't have a clue, so I said yes. So I thought I'd probably get killed hung for treason or something like that, or aligned to the King. But I think in my back of my mind, I think they're meant to be net zero, but that's not the main focus. And afterwards, I got a lovely card and biscuits and what have you from him, and we're busy mates now, and I get a nice Christmas card from him. But one of the C's, if you've been counting, there's been a few so far, we've got crazy projects, etc. But one of the C's is child challenges. And that's kind of like the main bit of what I've been told is my remit. I like to read those bullet points. SOLAS and, well, ISM code being my main area of law anyway.
Break.
Yeah. 3 minutes, well, better, right, solution now. One thing, know is the government wants the people, the public, to be able to trust getting on board on these ships. Now, bear in mind, I've said this a few times, quite angry in a TV interview recently, an idiot who's basically saying that autonomous ships won't take everybody's jobs away. And they said, yes, but autonomous ships are around now, but in my lifetime, although, like I say, ego might kill me off shortly, especially when I'm only late, running over these 3 minutes, in my lifetime, we will not see autonomous ships being used as the main form of transport, especially not the main form of public transport like ferries, etc. They are out now, they're kind of being tested, but they're not going to be kind of the main form of transport for decades to come. But that's not the reason why we should kind of try and get there. But the remit is kind of to have this idea of trust. And people trust using them. When they get on board, they feel safe. You get on board an airplane, you get on board a ship now, they're not automatically thinking, oh God, it's going to go down, etc. Although I do use maritime disaster expert. But I didn't think I'm putting on board these ships or use these automatic Uber things and I can trust them. I'm going to be safe. I will go through these few slides quickly. So I've got an aerial Britannia. The UK was a leading maritime state, if not the leading maritime state until one point. And as you all know, 95% of international maritime law is basically copied and pasted English law. It's the reason why I'm more seated in London, and the reason why I have lawyers in London. But we're becoming less influential in the whole maritime sector in the whole world, I suppose, because of things like Brexit and other things that are going on in the world. I know we don't like to use the word mass, what I've learned today, but mass is out there. We've got IMO, which is about the chief of the chocolate fire guard, and the UK want to get ahead of IMO. Because if the UK can get ahead of IMO, which was my job, and create a draft piece of legislation what can be adopted by the IMO, they'll just go, yeah, we'll do that. Well, lazy, the IMO will copy England. And then we will then regain our seat, I suppose, as the leading maritime state, because the rest of the world will be following in shore once again. The IMO, luckily for us, I suppose, are very slow. They spent weeks and weeks, months and months, possibly a year or two, discussing our autonomous ships a reality, as they were being tested around the world. That's how kind of backwards thinking they are. So, IMO identified a few pieces of legislation. I know Raphael was talking about kind of why should we tinker with existing legislation? Why don't we just create new legislation? And that's my opinion. To be honest, I think changing things and tweaking words is a lot more hard work, a lot more difficulty. And it's hard work for lawyers like ourselves. It's going to be hard work for lawyers in the real world. It's going to be harder for maritime masters, etc., to understand what their liabilities are and companies, etc. So I think having a dual situation is probably the best. And I'm not mentioning that basically both reasons autonomy, and I think we've all been aware of it through the day, and I think some things I mentioned yesterday, that kind of what we mean by autonomy. and kind of what the IMO come with is these four different ideas of 4 degrees. And difficult at the end, I promise. Again, it kind of just a few that mentioned to me as kind of how to change these. I just copy and paste them onto the slide. That's how lazy I am. You might have some ideas yourselves, but there's more than this obviously. But as a safety person, this is what kind of is presented to me. And one final kind of one, which I thought was the easiest one, but for some reason, this admiral, this kind of important person, I forget the name of, who was in this meeting with me, was talking about how do we deal with duty to render assistance. When I looked on a few of the journal articles about this, a lot of academics were having problems with the duty to render assistance. How do we make that? And when I actually read the duty to render assistance requirements, it's very simple. So what you've got to do is kind of your duty to render assistance, which is tell you what you've got to do, it's not prescriptive. And therefore, it doesn't say whether you've got to kind of go and rescue them, you've got to, can you throw them a life raft, anything like that, or tick the box. So my kind of total question was, why are we concerned with this? Because it's easy to tick that box, it's an autonomous ship. So all an autonomous ship have to do to tick that box legally now is to notify search and rescue, and then go on its merry way. That's all we have to do legally. I'm not saying it's morally right, but legally that's all we have to do. The reason why I kind of put this guy here is because he was in Titanic. It's the same actor was in my favourite book series, Ratio Homegrower, all about duty. And my dog was actually named after him. So kind of bit of summary there. I must do this very quickly because I can see Igor looking at me. My heart's palpitating. But kind of I think that's the easy one kind of resolve. I don't think that is one we need to spend much time on dealing with at all. Colloquium, maybe a bit more. And I will definitely finish on this slide, like, again, this audience participation. I know you're all driving, if you're driving alongside the road, I know that. But which one of those is right? This is, I think, this is the biggest issue we're going to have with autonomous ships. So which one's the correct one to do? If you're approaching a car and you're going to turn, do you pass front to front or do you go around and pass rear to rear? Which one do you do in the real world? The highway code in England, anyway, and I'm assuming it's the rest of the world as well, would say the far one is the correct one. You go rear to rear. I have never ever done that in 20 years of driving. If I try to do that, I'd probably crash into the car and try to do exactly what everybody else does and passes at the front. So do you program an autonomous ship that is operating in waters with other normal ships? Do you program to do what everybody else would do, or do you program to do what the law says you should do? Think about that. And I'm going to definitely skip them and be on that. Sorry for taking so long.
Thank you so much.